America, my name is Osei-Frimpong. I come live every Thursday, but I feel like I had to do a special Friday show because this Johnny Depp Amber Heard verdict has got people thinking, and it's got people thinking in some helpful and unhealthful ways. Helpful and healthful. And so I'm going to clarify the situation, and I'm going to tell you right now that both assault weapons and assault allegations have the same historical source, which is policing mouthy black men. That's why we have a hard time getting rid of assault weapons, and that's why we have a hard time dealing with assault allegations, because we needed to create the perfect victim, and we needed to impugn the perfect victim with a quality of moral authority that they can never do anything wrong and that they would never abuse their power. And and so that's how we created, kind of conceived of womanhood since colonial times, especially upper class and white womanhood. As like the perpetual victim. And so if you have you need a perpetual victim in order to be able to, without discretion, police the perpetual perpetrator, which is us, right? So we have a hard time holding women account in general, because we needed them to be perpetual victims, especially white women. We needed them to be perpetual victims to the assailant, which we needed to legitimize just the policing of black populations and black men, and specifically, a ridiculous amount of lynchings. Anywhere to a quarter to a third of the lynchings, like, were nakedly for just making some white woman nervous. Like, so we needed the assault allegations to have serious consequences and a low standard of proof. And so what happens when these assault allegations have serious consequences and a low standard of proof in order to police black men, it turns out that, women start getting ideas of their own. So they start using the assault allegations for their own benefit and their own power grabs. And that's where we are right now. And we got to figure out what that means in the culture and for the culture, and why we can't get rid of that. Why do we assume that we must believe and trust women? Well, I believe them right up until, they lie to me. Now they're talking about, assault as in emotional abuse. And I'll be honest, you could take 3 hours of any one of my days and call me abusive. You could say I abuse my job, I abuse my family, I abuse my property, I'm a black man in America trying to do things that America doesn't want black men to do, so they call it abusive, right? So what we consider to be abuse is the limit of what we need to police mouthy black men, of which I'm one. So this idea that emotionally abusive, yeah, I'm under that consideration of abuse. I'm sure I'm emotionally abusive or physically abusive, whatever. I'm sure that, like I said, I've been banned on Facebook a million times, videos withheld from YouTube for abuse. And so, I'm sure any 3 hours of my life, if you wanted to, you could charge me. You could allege that I abused someone or something, or did something abusive, because that's why. And I can tell you, in those 3 hours, whatever I did is directly tied to overturning a version of white supremacy or quality of governance and civil culture that's trying to keep, me not being loud and excellent, or at least loud and pretty good, right? So this idea that, abuse should always be punished is ridiculous, right? And this idea that, we have to trust women, that you're pretty much like opening up a pogrom if you just say trust all women just because they're women. You're pretty much opening up a pogrom on black people, because any mouthy black guy who's worth a damn is gonna get accused of something at some point. Is gonna get is gonna be abused, and you're trying right now. Is you're trying to get more people slapped like Chris Rock because maybe he was emotionally abusive to Jada, so he deserved what coming to him. That's if you open up the gate to emotional abuse without actually thinking through what that means, you're just saying black men don't even open up your mouth. Especially have just a little bit of bass in your voice. Don't even open up your mouth because everything you do, or don't do anything because everything you do is going to be considered abusive. I'm sure Earl Woods was abusive, and Richard Williams was abusive, and the Washington dad over in Michigan, he was abusive. So like if you just kind of say, all abuse allegations should be taken very seriously insofar as like they should lead to punishment or even suggestions, because that's another thing about black male vulnerability. It's not just legal. Like anything will be believed of me at any time. And then you just live your life that way. So you could spend your life trying not to be accused of anything, or you can just say, fuck it, I'm going to be accused of everything anyway, so I might as well use my own discretion. To which I do, right? So if you live your life trying not to be accused of abuse, because everything will be believed of you. Everything is going to be believed. Everyone just assumed I did it. So, you're going to have to make your own decision. The next time someone says I did something, you're going to have to make your own judgment about it. But that's the quality of black male vulnerability that we need to take seriously. So why can't we get rid of assault guns? Why can't we get rid of like some of these spacious assault allegations? Well, it's because both the weapons, the history of guns in America was how to police Native Americans and blacks. Like that's the history of gun culture in America. Like how to wipe out Native Americans and subordinate black people. Like that's the gun culture. And to sustain yourself from like black justice claims. So if for some reason we were made whole, white people want their guns in order to make sure that they keep their ill-gotten gains, right? So it's to sustain injustice claims. People say that, well, no, we have a gun culture because people want to keep themselves safe from the tyranny of government. No, because that's why you don't see like some of these gun nuts shooting cops as much. Like they're not worried about the tyranny of government. The government and the gun nuts have a relationship together. It's symbiotic. What the people want guns and the gun culture is about wanting to play government, wanting to self-deputize. Self-deputize against who? That's the history of gun culture. And that is the same with the history of assault allegations. We needed a class of women who would be able to point and then someone else shoots. The women point at a Negro and someone else shoots the Negro, and it was all just a symbiotic system. Point, shoot. And that's the history of both assault allegations and assault weapons. And until you actually deal with its origin in anti-black violence, and especially targeting black males who are peculiarly vulnerable in ways that Tommy Curry actually lays out very well in his book, The Man Not. I'd love to talk to Tommy about this because I think Tommy, I'm curious to think what Tommy would say, but I suspect he would agree that our inability to deal with both assault weapons and assault allegations is directly tied to our willingness and wantingness to use both of these policing mechanisms against mouthy black men. And what happens is that then these policies take a life of their own, right? The assault weapons and the allegations, and they get used for targets that are not mouthy black men, but we don't actually take them seriously. We don't actually like look at what it means that we've just imbued womanhood with some idea that like they'll never lie about anything, or won't weaponize this state power to just suggest assault. I mean, Amber Heard pretty much did this to be relevant, and she's not the only one. She's not the only one. She did this to be relevant. A lot of these people don't have anything else going on in their lives. They're not particularly interesting, but what they can be is an assault victim. And Heard, she does that so that this is her way of being relevant. Yeah. So that's what I think comes on, because that's what I've seen happen. Because, like I said, the ACLU wrote this, and she was an ambassador for the ACLU on women's issues because of this. She's not particularly interesting. These are both very broken people. These are both very broken people in a narcissistic relationship, and it must be horrible dating either of them but they chose each other, and it's abuse in that context. It's like a BDSM relationship with no safe words, except you want to retroactively read safe words onto something. But like it's like an unregulated, ill-disciplined BDSM relationship, and then all of a sudden we're supposed to call it abuse when retroactively it looks bad. Plus, divorces are ugly. So people say that, well, you know, you read what he wrote about her, you read what he said. Yeah, people are ugly in divorces. People are ugly in divorces. Like it brings out the worst of everybody. And since we don't make very good people, the worst of everybody is pretty bad. Right? So this idea that rich people use the court and all of this to punish each other, that shouldn't be surprising, or that they were horribly gross to each other or abusive to each other. I think all of like a third of divorces are some form of abuse. Just the idea that you could wake up one day and someone said, I got to quit you and take half your stuff. That's already vaguely abusive, depending on who you talk to. So half your aspirations, got to split the kids now down the middle. So yeah, divorce is court abuse, emotional abuse. All right. And so there's going to be lying and that's just all in the game. So there's actually no real substitute for just making better people. Right. We think we can have a law where we don't have to worry about making better people. We can just control their actions through the law. But it turns out that no, especially in intimate partner things, there's no substitute for just making better people, making the kind of people who think about each other. And then, and yeah, the idea that we get this confused is we've normalized and naturalized this idea that women can't do anything wrong. And so we don't know what to do with an Amber Heard. We can't admit that, like, yeah, they were in an abusive relationship that like they liked for a while until they didn't like it because, you know, that's bad. And then we're supposed to be from the outside, be able to adjudicate that. And we're supposed to pretend that Amber Heard doesn't have asymmetrical power when she just kind of suggests that Depp abused her, right? When she just kind of suggests that. She's like, what? Free speech. I should be able to say anything I want. You know, women like that saying anything they want is what gets guys like me lynched. No, you don't. It's not free speech when you just suggest that your husband abused. Like I said, anything will be believed of me at any point in time. So this is just a kind of vulnerability that I don't like seeing weaponized. I've accepted, but I don't like seeing it trumpeted and weaponized. So yeah, I believe women and trust women, but this is what you get. You know, you believe women and trust women, you're going to get Amber Hearded. Because, you know, or you just believe and trust black women because black women can't do anything wrong. And then you can't be surprised when Patrice Coolers turns out to be a whole grifter. Not a whole grifter, just like 65% grifter, a 3/4 grifter. And she took all that Black Lives Matter money and didn't pay any of the moms of the kids who were shot, didn't set up scholarships for the family members of the kids of the black men who were shot. I never heard about Crawford over at Walmart or Crawford. Yeah. So a whole grifter was right. Maybe Patrice Coolers was a whole grifter, or Philando Castile's family, baby mama getting a house out of it. No, she would like Patrice Cooler was a whole grifter because trust black women means you can't ever say that like I think this black woman is a grifter, right? So yeah, nobody's gonna try to cancel Patrice Coolers. You'll cancel Dave Chappelle, but you won't cancel Patrice Coolers. You'll slap the crap out of Chris Rock, but. Anyway, so this idea that we have some sort of identities that can't do anything wrong, we have to figure out why do we need these identities to not be able to do anything wrong? Well, if all you have to do is trust black women, that means you don't have to listen to a damn thing black men say. That solves that problem. So like we wanted to police black men, we just have to trust black women. And that way, anything that a black man can say, he can say through a black woman or not at all, and he should just hush, right? And same thing with trust. And then, yeah, and we have to understand the gun culture. We have a hard time getting rid of the gun culture in the United States because it we still want to be able to asymmetrically and unofficially deputize ourselves to police the crap out of black men against their justice claims, right? And so that's driving the gun culture, and that's driving our inability to actually like think through what it means that we are attached to this idea of womanhood that makes it impossible for them to do wrong, to perpetrate harm. They can't both be the victims and perpetrators of harm, right? So Amber Heard, made a life out of herself, made a name for herself, not as a great actress, not as a great beauty. She was like, her second act was going to be as a women's rights icon. And Johnny Depp just didn't want to be the step stool and take a hit, because he was pretty much canceled. So he didn't want to take a hit for her come up, right? And he fought back, right? So it is what it is. These are both awful people. Don't marry them. But we have to actually work through what it means that we can't deal with assault weapons and assault allegations, because the origin is still the same. The origin is still the same, and the origin is the deep need and the fear to police mouthy black men. Because everything I do from today on can be reconceived as an assault, and then you could deputize someone to shoot me. And that's the power that these both assault allegations and assault weapons, like that's what drives their sustenance in American culture. Right? That's why we can't actually deal with them. We can't actually talk about women being both perpetrators and victims. And we can't actually talk about, like, why do we need so many guns? Because the tacit answer to both those questions is, in a pinch, we want a legitimate excuse to be able to police, shoot, or discipline mouthy black men away from their justice claim. And we want that, and we need that diffused. So we need to be able, so that all men need to be able to deputize themselves as like Kyle Rittenhouse, and then all women need to be able to deputize themselves as the trigger that will allow somebody to point and shoot a black guy. Right? That's why we can't actually deal with both the guns and the assault allegations, because it's about race. Not going to hear that very much, but it's the truth. Our inability to deal with both assault weapons and assault allegations is about a colonial ideology that needed the weapons to police the people, and it needed the allegations in order to legitimize the use of weapons. And that's where we are. And now those policies have now taken a life of their own, and we can't get rid of it because we still need and want to police the justice claims of, outstanding justice claims, which include justice claims of black men and black communities. Which is why if you both assault and gun violence is, a huge problem in the black community, but we don't even get close to any of the solutions, which would be like, jobs, assets, infrastructure, all of these things, because we read like the white lens on a black, like the way these problems have materialized in the black community. So we think it's about gender, or we think it's about like the guns, but really you get rid of assault weapons and you tamp down assault allegations. That doesn't actually deal with the issue in black communities, which isn't the guns and isn't the allegations. It's the material deprivation, which then adds stressors, which makes more shootings and bigger IPV and more assault and child abuse and all that stuff. But we don't get at that because we look at these issues through a white lens, and which is going to not actually, they're going to read into gender or some sort of American identity about like tyrannizing, about being scared, about policing the government, That's why you need guns to keep to get away from government tyranny. When that's not really anything. That's not what's going on. The whites are so bad about lying to themselves about their relationship with guns and their relationships with sexual assault. Look, if the whites, and I'll say like, the general, and if the whites just kind of went out and said, look, we have a gun culture and a sexual assault allegation culture that derives from our fear of mouthy black men. And we need to probably deal with all of these problems at the same time. Our fear of mouthy black men and the guns and the allegations. Because if we try to do one without the other, like none of it will work, then we could actually get somewhere. We could actually get somewhere both on like what to deal with, sexual allegations or assault allegations, and then also how to think about, guns. But since we won't say that, we'll just keep going around in circles. So, by the way, if you like what I'm doing or you think I should do it more, or you just kind of support me in general, go ahead and go to www.funkyacademic.com and kick in $5, $15, or $50 a month, and I'll just keep doing what I'm doing, because you're not going to hear this anywhere else, but you should, because this is what's going on. This is what's going on. We have this thing that we designed to police black people, and now it's kind of metastasizes, and it shoots up schools and makes allegations against Johnny Depp, and like serves as a come up for random people who don't have anything else going on in their life and for their identity, so that they can now be assault victims and ambassadors for the ACLU. And we don't deal with it because it came out of this need to police black men. And until we deal with the need to police black men, we're never actually going to deal with the fruits of this culture, So that's where we are. Assault weapons, assault allegations are the same problem. The same problem is we don't want to admit that we need these things to control black men. And that's why we never really will get rid of them until we actually deal with the justice claims of black communities. Thank you for your time, and I will see you next week.